Have you ever wondered what would happen if, for just one day, you could master every thought before it escaped your mouth, every emotion before it dictated your actions, every desire before it drained your wealth, and every impulse before it shattered your peace? What would remain of you, the chaos or the calm? Silence. That's where every journey toward control begins. Not with shouting, not with movement, but with the quiet decision to watch yourself. Most people live their whole lives speaking without listening, reacting without thinking, spending without purpose, and feeling without understanding. They believe they are free because they can do what they want, but they never notice the invisible chains forged by their own minds. Chains of words, moods, money, and restless thoughts. The ancients called this slavery of the soul. They didn't measure freedom by wealth, status, or comfort, but by how little control the world had over their inner state. Stoics understood, the true empire lies within. If you lose your temper, your wealth, or your composure at every inconvenience, what empire do you rule? None. You are a servant to your impulses, crowned by chaos, governed by fear. It begins small. A careless word that cuts deeper than you intended. A burst of anger that poisons a relationship. A purchase you didn't need that later leaves you restless and empty. Each moment feels minor, but together, they carve the shape of your character. And one day, you wake up realizing you've built a life you never consciously designed, one made of reactions instead of choices. That realization is the beginning of mastery. Because control is not about suppression. It's about understanding. You cannot rule over what you refuse to face. When Marcus Aurelius sat alone in the stillness of the night, writing to himself in a dim room, he wasn't preaching to the world. He was wrestling with it. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote, reminding himself that every storm begins with a thought. The mouth, the mood, the money, the mind, all four are extensions of that single battlefield. To master one is to glimpse control. To master all is to attain peace. And so, your test begins not tomorrow, not after some perfect plan, but in this very breath. Can you notice the next word forming on your tongue and decide whether it builds or destroys? Can you catch the next emotion before it drags you like a prisoner through the streets of regret? Can you look at your desires, your hunger for more, and ask if they serve you or enslave you? Mental mastery is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming unshakable. When the world shouts, you listen. When chaos rises, you breathe. When the impulse screams, you wait. And in that waiting, in that pause between stimulus and response, you find freedom. This is the first step toward control. The awareness that you are not your reactions. You are the watcher behind them, the master hidden in the storm. Have you ever spoken words that you instantly wished you could take back? Words that seemed harmless when they left your lips but later burned like fire in someone's heart? Or in your own? Every great downfall, every broken bond, every regretful moment often begins not with action, but with speech. The mouth, the smallest part of the body, yet capable of shaping entire destinies. Most people think control begins with action. But true control begins before that, with the moment you decide whether or not to speak. Words are energy. Once released, they cannot be recalled, rephrased, or reversed. They build, they destroy, they heal, they wound. One careless sentence can turn years of trust into silence. One calm response can turn a storm into peace. The difference between the two lies in mastery, not of the world, but of yourself. The Stoics taught that before you speak, ask 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Most of us never get past the first one. We speak to defend, to prove, to wound, or to fill silence we fear. But a person of mastery sees the tongue as a sword sharpened by thought, guided by discipline. You do not swing it recklessly. You wield it with purpose. Imagine every word as a seed you plant into the world. Some seeds grow into shade and fruit, others into thorns and poison. What kind of garden are your words growing? Think about it, every conversation is a test of self-command. When anger rises, when ego stirs, when the urge to respond overtakes reason, the weak man speaks. The wise man waits. There is immense power in silence. It confuses the angry, humbles the arrogant, and strengthens the calm. Silence isn't weakness, it's control. To hold your words when emotion demands release is to prove that you rule your impulses, not the other way around. Remember, restraint is not suppression, it's understanding. You don't bite your tongue out of fear. You guard your peace out of strength. And here's a truth many never learn. You are never punished for your anger. You are punished by it. You are never ruined by your words. You are ruined through them. A Stoic knows that every word carries a consequence, and every silence carries wisdom. So if you truly seek mastery over your mind, your emotions, your life, start here, with your mouth. Guard your speech like a treasure chest. Open it only when what's inside is worth sharing. Speak less, listen more, and when you do speak, let your words be like medicine. Strong, measured, and healing. Because those who can master their tongue can master their world. And if you stay till the end of this video, I'll share the final principle, the one Stoics called the unbreakable mind. It's the secret that turns discipline into power and peace into freedom. Have you ever wondered why a single comment, a single delay, or a single disappointment can ruin an entire day? You wake up peaceful, everything seems fine. Then one unexpected word, one small irritation, and your entire mood collapses like a fragile wall. Why does something so small have such massive power over you? The truth is simple but brutal. You've been trained to react, not to rule. And whoever controls your mood, controls you. The Stoics called emotions the tempests of the soul. They knew that storms will come, anger, sadness, jealousy, fear. But they also knew something most people never realize. You are not the storm. You are the sky behind it. When you forget that, you suffer. Think about it, your mood decides your tone, your choices, your energy. A bad mood doesn't just change how you feel. It changes what you create, how you treat others, and even how you see the world. You can't see truth through the fog of emotion. You can't find peace in the noise of anger. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You cannot always choose what happens to you, but you can always choose the meaning you give it. And meaning is the birthplace of mood. You lose your calm not because the world is cruel, but because you believe it should be kind. You lose your patience not because life is hard, but because you expected it to be easy. Control begins when expectation ends. Imagine being able to face chaos and remain unmoved, not emotionless, but unbroken. When insulted, you smile. When delayed, you breathe. When disappointed, you learn. That's not weakness, that's dominance. That's mental warfare mastered. Because the one who stays calm when others lose control, that person owns the moment. There's a line between feeling emotions and being ruled by them. The Stoic does not suppress his feelings. He simply refuses to let them decide his life. Anger visits. He welcomes it, observes it, learns from it, then lets it leave. Sadness comes, he sits with it, but he does not become it. The difference between pain and suffering is simple. Pain is inevitable, suffering is chosen. Ask yourself right now, how many times have you destroyed your own peace just to prove a point? How many times have you reacted, only to regret it moments later? Each time, your mood became your master. Each time, you traded peace for pride. But here's the secret, when you control your mood, you gain something priceless. Predictability in chaos. You become unshakable, reliable, unstoppable. And if you've watched this far, know this. Every step you take toward mastering your mood builds the foundation for mastering your money. Because emotions don't just control your words and reactions, they control your decisions. And your decisions decide your destiny. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, how much of your peace have you already sold? Not for gold, not for survival, but for approval, status, or the illusion of more. Money, the silent master of modern life. The very thing people chase to feel secure often becomes the greatest source of their insecurity. It's not money itself that enslaves. It's the dependence on it. The Stoics saw this clearly. Wealth is a tool, not a throne. The moment you worship it, it owns you. Think about it. Every day, people trade hours of their lives for pieces of paper. hoping those pieces will buy them happiness later. They work jobs they hate, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't even like. And in the end, they call it success. But what kind of success costs your soul? Money can build or destroy, can liberate or enslave. It depends on one thing, whether you control it or it controls you. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Let that sink in. True richness has nothing to do with what fills your pockets and everything to do with what empties your mind of craving. You think you need more comfort, more luxury, more recognition, but every time you chase more, you feed the beast of discontent. The more it eats, the hungrier it becomes. The Stoic, on the other hand, trains himself to desire less. He still earns, still builds, still strives, but from power, not from lack. He uses money. Money never uses him. Ask yourself, what if tomorrow your wealth vanished? Would you still have peace? Would your character remain unshaken? Or would your world collapse because it was built on numbers instead of values? If your peace depends on your possessions, then you never truly owned anything. They owned you. The most dangerous poverty isn't having nothing. It's needing everything. Because once you need, you kneel. And Stoicism teaches you to stand. So here's the paradox. The more you can live without, the richer you become. When you no longer need to impress, to prove, or to compete, every sunrise becomes a gift, not a transaction. The Stoic's wealth is in self-sufficiency. His security comes from mastery, not from money. And that's the secret you'll find when you reach the end of this journey. Once your desires stop owning your choices, you gain something no one can take: freedom. If you're still here, you're already ahead of most. Because few people ever see that money is just the mirror reflecting their own discipline, their own control, their own truth. And that mirror leads us to the final frontier, the one that rules them all, the mind. The kingdom where every battle begins and ends. Have you ever wondered who you would be if you could silence every thought that weakens you? Every fear, every doubt, every whisper of "you can't"? If your mind is the battlefield, then every thought is a soldier. And here's the truth most never face. Your greatest enemy doesn't live outside you. It lives inside your head. The mind, it creates heaven. It creates hell. It builds empires and it burns them down. You've seen it, haven't you? Those moments when your body is safe, your life is stable, but your mind refuses to rest. You replay past mistakes, invent future problems, and fill the silence with noise. You're not living life, you're fighting ghosts. The Stoics understood this madness long before psychology gave it a name. They saw that pain doesn't come from events themselves but from our judgment of them. The mind decides what hurts and what heals. And so they trained their minds as warriors train their bodies, with discipline, repetition, and resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You become what you give your thoughts to." Think about that. Every day your thoughts are building a version of you. Each time you choose fear, you strengthen fear. Each time you choose calm, you strengthen peace. The question is, who are you feeding? The prisoner or the master? Control doesn't mean you never feel fear or doubt. It means you see them rise and say, "You do not command me." The Stoic mind doesn't run from darkness, it studies it. Because awareness is power. Once you can see your thoughts clearly, they lose their power to deceive you. Your mind is like a wild horse, strong, fast, capable of greatness, but without training, it throws you off every time. Meditation, reflection, journaling, these were not rituals of religion to the Stoics. They were tools of warfare. Each moment of awareness tightens the reins. Each breath of focus tames the beast. Ask yourself, how many battles have you lost because you believed everything your mind told you? How many opportunities died because you let fear speak louder than courage? The mind can be your weapon or your warden. The choice is made every time you think. And here's the ultimate truth. The world will never be under your control, but your mind can be. When you master it, you master everything. When you own your thoughts, no insult can wound you. No chaos can shake you. No failure can define you. You become untouchable not because the world changed, but because you did. The Stoic doesn't seek an easy life. He seeks an unbreakable spirit. He doesn't ask for lighter burdens. He asks for stronger shoulders. He doesn't chase peace. He becomes peace. And when you reach that point, when you control your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind, you don't just live differently. You live freely, because freedom isn't the absence of control, it's the presence of mastery. So remember this. The one who conquers himself conquers everything. Have you ever noticed that the loudest minds are usually the most restless? People who talk the most, worry the most, and chase the most rarely find peace. But the ones who move in silence, who think before they speak, who act before they react, they possess something different. Something the world can't buy and chaos can't steal. Mental mastery. Mental mastery isn't about being emotionless or detached. It's about being anchored. It's about standing in the middle of life's storm, where others panic, lose control, and crumble, and simply breathing. It's not magic and it's not luck. It's training. It's discipline. It's the conscious decision to never let temporary emotions make permanent decisions. Most people don't fail because life is hard. They fail because they are untrained in stillness. They've built strength in their hands but not in their minds. They can lift weight, but they can't lift a thought. They can chase dreams, but they can't control distractions. The Stoic, however, knows that the mind is the master switch. Control it, and every part of life obeys. Think of your mind as a fortress. Every day, the world will try to breach it, with noise, opinions, fears, and temptations. Each negative thought that enters is a soldier invading your peace. If you leave the gates open, chaos becomes your ruler. But when you guard those gates, when you decide what enters and what stays, you no longer live reactively. You live deliberately. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to repeat one phrase every morning. Today, I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. Yet none of them can harm me, because I will not let them. That's not arrogance. That's awareness. It's the ability to see life clearly, without emotion clouding judgment, without fear guiding behavior. When you reach that level, nothing external can touch you. Someone insults you, you smile. You lose money, you remain calm. Plans fail, you adapt. Because your peace is no longer a reaction, it's a decision. Mental mastery is the art of holding stillness inside while the world moves around you. It's when you realize that control isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. It's when silence stops being uncomfortable and starts feeling powerful. And here's the greatest secret. When you stop trying to control everything, you finally gain control of the only thing that matters, yourself. That's the paradox of Stoicism. You lose the need to win, and suddenly you win everything that matters. You stop chasing peace, and peace begins chasing you. So, the next time your words want to lash out, pause. The next time your mood wants to collapse, breathe. The next time your money tempts your pride, reflect. And the next time your mind screams chaos, smile. Because you know something most people don't, true power lives in restraint. Have you ever stopped to think about how easily you give yourself away? Not your money, not your time, but you. You hand over your peace to anger, your focus to distraction, your worth to approval, and your control to impulse. And every time you do, the world grows louder, while your inner voice fades into silence. The Stoics believed that strength was not about conquering the world, it was about conquering the self. That's why they built their philosophy around four unshakable pillars: the mouth, the mood, the money, and the mind. Together, they form the architecture of mastery. Lose one, and the whole structure begins to crumble. Your mouth is the gateway of energy. Every word you speak either builds or destroys. You've seen this truth already. Silence can win arguments that shouting never could. The disciplined tongue is the mark of a disciplined soul. Your mood is the compass of your character. It decides whether you respond or react, whether you learn or break. The Stoic doesn't chase a perfect mood. He creates stability within imperfection. He knows that calmness isn't found. It's forged. Your money is the mirror of your desires. It reveals what you value most, control or consumption. The Stoic uses wealth, but he never worships it. He earns from virtue, not vanity, because he knows that the richest man is the one who needs the least. And your mind, the throne of them all, is where victory or defeat is decided long before any battle begins. The untrained mind turns peace into chaos. The trained mind turns chaos into purpose. Master the mind, and the rest follow like loyal soldiers. These 4 pillars are not built overnight. They demand constant watchfulness. A daily war with ego, emotion, and illusion. But when they stand together, something extraordinary happens. You stop being tossed by life, and you start directing it. Imagine living a life where nothing external has the power to shake you, where insults bounce off silence, where loss awakens gratitude, where temptation meets clarity. That's not fantasy. That's Stoicism lived in its purest form. You stop reacting to the world, and the world starts reacting to you. That's what it means to reclaim yourself, to take back the authority you unknowingly gave away to emotions, to opinions, to noise. And here's the quiet truth few will ever realize. Peace isn't something you find at the end of the journey. It's something you build along the way, word by word, choice by choice, thought by thought. Control your mouth. Control your mood. Control your money. Control your mind. And in doing so, you will control your life. Have you ever wondered why even when life seems stable, money earned, relationships steady, goals in sight, a quiet unrest still stirs inside you? That subtle anxiety, that whisper of doubt, that voice that says, "It's not enough." What is that voice, and why does it never stop talking? That voice is your inner enemy, the part of your mind that feeds on chaos, comparison, and craving. You don't see it, but you feel its pull every day. It convinces you to speak when silence would save you, provokes anger when peace would serve you, tempts you to spend, react, and regret, again and again. The Stoics didn't fight the world. They fought the endless noise within. They understood that the greatest victory you'll ever win is not over others but over yourself. Because if you can't master your own impulses, you'll always be at the mercy of someone else's. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom isn't walking away from the world. It's walking away from weakness, your own weakness. When your tongue wants to defend pride, but you choose silence, you win. When your anger wants to explode, but you choose calm, you win. When your desires whisper more, but you choose contentment, you win. Each small victory strengthens your inner fortress. Each moment of control builds armor against the world's chaos. But here's the trap: control isn't permanent. It's not a prize you win once and keep forever. It's a discipline renewed every day, every thought, every reaction. The mind will test you again and again. You'll fall, you'll forget, and you'll speak when you should have listened. But mastery isn't perfection. It's persistence. It's rising each time the inner enemy drags you down and saying, "Not this time." And here's something deeper. Your enemy isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to expose you. Every frustration reveals your impatience. Every temptation reveals your weakness. Every loss reveals your attachment. These moments aren't punishments, they're mirrors. They show you exactly what still controls you. The Stoic sees each challenge not as a curse but as a classroom. The difficult person teaches patience. The failure teaches humility. The delay teaches endurance. And the noise of the world teaches the value of silence. Once you start seeing pain as a teacher, it loses its power to wound. So the war within never truly ends, but with time you stop fighting to destroy the enemy and start fighting to understand it. And that's when mastery begins. You realize the enemy was never trying to beat you, it was trying to wake you. Because the one who can face his own chaos without running, that person has already won. And when you can stand before your own emotions, your own temptations, and your own fears and remain still, you become what the Stoics called invictus, unconquered. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to finally stop breaking every time life tests you? Not pretending to be strong, but being strong. The kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't prove, doesn't depend on luck or comfort. It simply is. That is what the Stoics called the unbreakable self. Most people build their peace like a house of glass, fragile, dependent on perfect weather. When life throws stones, they shatter. But the Stoic builds his peace like a fortress, stone by stone, principle by principle, until no storm can shake it. And that fortress is built not from arrogance, but from awareness. You become unbreakable when you stop expecting life to be easy. You become unbreakable when you stop seeking validation from noise. You become unbreakable when your happiness no longer depends on how others treat you, but on how you treat your own mind. The Stoics never promise comfort, they promise clarity. Because comfort makes you soft, but clarity makes you strong. When you truly understand that everything external, wealth, reputation, comfort, approval, can vanish in a breath, you stop clinging. And in that moment, you find something far greater than pleasure. Peace. Think of a mountain. Storms come, winds scream, lightning strikes, but the mountain remains. It doesn't resist the weather. It endures it. The Stoic trains his mind the same way. He doesn't fight life. He allows it to unfold, knowing that he decides how to interpret it. The world is not your enemy. Your reaction is. And this is the paradox. The moment you stop needing life to go your way, life begins to move with you, not against you. Because peace doesn't come from controlling outcomes, it comes from controlling outlooks. When you no longer need to be right, to be liked, or to be comfortable, you become unshakable. When loss no longer defines you, when insult no longer wounds you, when failure no longer frightens you, you've won. You've built a mind that cannot be manipulated, a heart that cannot be stolen, and a soul that cannot be broken. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That is the essence of Stoicism, not talking, not pretending, but becoming. Becoming the calm in chaos, the discipline in temptation, the silence in noise. Because once you master your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind, you no longer chase peace. You embody it. You no longer seek control, you are control. You become the eye of the storm, still, centered, and immovable. So ask yourself now, will you continue living as a servant to impulse and emotion, or will you rise as the ruler of yourself? Because in the end, the world doesn't need more power, it needs more masters of the mind. And that's what you were always meant to become. Have you ever asked yourself what it truly means to be free? Not the kind of freedom that depends on money, time, or permission, but the kind that exists even in silence, even in struggle, even in loss. That is the destination of Stoicism. Freedom of the soul. Freedom doesn't come from escaping the world. It comes from understanding it. It's not about owning more, doing more, or being more, it's about needing less. It's about reaching a place where nothing outside of you can disturb what's inside of you. That's what the Stoics lived for. That's what mental mastery means. Think of all the chains you've worn, the fear of judgment, the hunger for approval, the anxiety of control. Each one forged quietly, link by link, through thought and habit. You were never born chained, you built the cage yourself. But here's the beautiful truth. If you built it, you can break it. The Stoic path begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Pain stops being punishment and becomes purpose. Failure stops being loss and becomes instruction. Every obstacle becomes an ally disguised as hardship. Marcus Aurelius called this the great inversion. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's the essence of mental mastery. Turning every difficulty into direction. When life closes a door, the average person curses fate. The Stoic studies the hinges. He doesn't waste time fighting reality. He works with it, patiently, wisely, like water shaping stone. Freedom, to a Stoic, is not about having control over life, it's about no longer needing to. When you reach that point, you stop negotiating with your emotions. You stop chasing peace in people, power, or possessions. You find it within, constant, calm, and unshaken. So what does this freedom look like in the real world? It looks like a man who keeps his mouth closed when insulted. It looks like a woman who remains calm when plans fail. It looks like a soul that sleeps peacefully, not because everything is perfect, but because it no longer needs to be. The Stoic path doesn't end with power. It ends with peace. You don't become emotionless. You become free from being owned by emotion. You don't reject the world. You just stop letting it dictate your state of mind. That is true mastery, not the control of others, but the command of self. So when your next challenge comes, and it will, remember this, you don't need to control what happens next. You just need to control what happens within. That is where all strength begins. That is where peace is born. That is where freedom lives. You are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to become after it happens. And once you master that truth, nothing in this world can ever break you again. Have you ever noticed how silence feels louder in chaos? When everything around you is falling apart, when people shout, when plans collapse, when anger and confusion fill the air, silence becomes the rarest, most powerful sound. That silence is where mastery is tested. Anyone can appear wise when life is easy. Anyone can seem calm when everything goes according to plan. But true mastery, the kind that Stoicism speaks of, is tested only in the storm. When you're pushed, misunderstood, provoked, and hurt, that's when the real battle begins. The test isn't whether you can fight back. It's whether you need to. The test isn't whether you can win an argument. It's whether you can walk away from it and still have peace. The test isn't whether you can prove your worth. It's whether you know your worth doesn't need proof. Because silence is not weakness, it's strength restrained. It's the mind saying, I refuse to hand over control of my emotions. It's the soul whispering, I've been here before, and I've survived worse. It's the inner self reminding you that not every attack deserves your energy, and not every reaction deserves your peace. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a storm. The winds scream, the waves crash. Everything within you wants to shout back, to fight, to prove, to make noise. But instead, you stand still. You breathe. You observe. You let the chaos exhaust itself. When it finally fades, what remains? You, still, unbroken, stronger than before. That is silence. That is power. That is mastery. The Stoics knew that control isn't about force. It's about stillness. Seneca once said, He who is brave is free. And bravery doesn't always look like battle. Sometimes it looks like a calm face in a heated moment. Sometimes it looks like saying nothing when anger begs for a reply. When you can stand inside the storm and remain centered, when your peace no longer depends on the behavior of others, you've won the only battle that ever mattered, the battle within. Because at the end of every argument, every outburst, every emotional storm, the one who stays calm wins. Not because they silence the world, but because they silence themselves first. And that silence, that's not emptiness. That's control. That's mastery. That's peace earned through discipline, not comfort. So the next time chaos comes knocking, don't rush to speak. Don't rush to react. Breathe. Observe. Respond only when your reason is stronger than your emotion. That's how you pass the final test of mastery, not by dominating the world, but by mastering your reaction to it. What if I told you that almost every mistake you've ever made, every regret, every heartbreak, every moment you wished you could undo, came down to losing control of just 4 things? Your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. That's it. For controls. For levers that decide the course of your life. If you can master them, you can master anything. If you lose them, the world will control you. Let's start with the first, your mouth. Most people speak to be heard. The wise speak to create peace. Your mouth can destroy years of progress in seconds. One careless word can ruin a relationship, a deal, or your reputation. The Stoics taught restraint, not because silence is easy, but because silence protects power. When you control your words, you control the perception of your strength. You become unpredictable, calm, and composed. Remember, your thoughts create your emotions, but your words amplify them. So speak less and you'll feel more in control. The second control, your mood. Emotions are natural. Chaos is optional. Life will never stop testing you. People will lie, things will go wrong, and pain will find you. But mood control means learning to suffer wisely. You can feel anger without becoming angry. You can experience sadness without drowning in it. The Stoic does not reject emotion, they manage it. They let feelings flow through them, not define them. Control your mood, and you stop reacting to life. You start responding. Then comes the third, your money. Not because wealth is evil or pure, but because how you treat money reveals who controls whom. Most people spend to feel powerful. Stoics save to stay powerful. They understand that freedom isn't built from excess. It's built from independence. When your happiness no longer depends on your balance, you've reached financial wisdom. The goal isn't to have more, it's to need less. And finally, the fourth, your mind. This is the command center, the battlefield, the temple. Control the mind and the rest follows. Your thoughts shape your perception, and your perception shapes your reality. When your mind is calm, you see truth clearly. When your mind is stormy, even beauty looks like chaos. That's why the Stoics trained their minds daily, not to escape pain, but to endure it with clarity. Your mouth, your mood, your money, your mind, for controls that define the quality of your life. Lose one, and cracks begin to form. Lose all four, and life feels impossible. But master them, you become unstoppable, not because the world bends to your will, but because your will no longer bends to the world. So, if you ever wonder where to start your journey to peace, start here. Guard your words, balance your emotions, discipline your spending, and most importantly, direct your thoughts. Everything else will follow. Have you ever wondered why we spend most of our lives anywhere but in the present moment? Our bodies live in the now, but our minds wander between the ghosts of yesterday and the worries of tomorrow. And that's where suffering hides, not in what is, but in what we imagine. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Man is disturbed not by things, but by the view he takes of them." In other words, pain doesn't come from reality, it comes from resistance. The world is neutral. It's our thoughts that decide whether it's good or bad. Stillness, then, is not inaction. It's control. It's the ability to stand in the middle of chaos and see clearly, to feel emotion and yet not drown in it, to be surrounded by noise and still hear your own thoughts. That's not passivity, it's power refined into peace. Look around you, the world runs on urgency. Everyone's chasing something. The next goal, the next win, the next escape. But have you noticed that those who are still seem unshakable? Because they've realized something profound, that now is all there ever is. Tomorrow is an illusion. Yesterday is dust. The only battlefield you ever truly fight on is this single, fleeting moment. Stillness is not laziness. It's a weapon sharpened by discipline. When you learn to sit quietly, to let thoughts pass without judgment, to breathe through anger instead of reacting, you begin to see that control doesn't come from force, it comes from presence. Because you can't master what you're not aware of. Think of stillness as the foundation beneath everything else you've learned, the root of control over your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. Without stillness, you speak before thinking. You react before reasoning. You spend before planning. You spiral before calming. But with stillness, everything slows. Decisions become deliberate. Words become thoughtful. Emotion becomes energy, not chaos. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Stillness gives you the space to face yourself, to prove that peace doesn't depend on silence outside, but silence within. So, practice the art of stillness every day. When someone provokes you, breathe. When plans fall apart, pause. When anxiety whispers, listen, but don't obey. Stillness is strength disguised as surrender. It's not about stopping the storm. It's about realizing the storm was never inside you. When you master the moment, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, the world loses its power over you. Have you ever noticed that the tighter you hold on to something, the more it slips away? Whether it's people, money, emotions, or control, the more desperately we try to cling, the more life forces us to release. That's not cruelty. That's balance. Detachment is one of the hardest Stoic lessons to learn. Yet it's the one that brings the greatest freedom. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop depending. You stop expecting life to always go your way. You stop letting circumstances decide your peace. You stop believing that happiness lives in what you can't keep. The Stoics taught that everything external is borrowed. Your possessions, your relationships, even your body. You came into the world with nothing and will leave the same way. So why suffer in between trying to own what was never truly yours? Detachment doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you unbreakable. It's choosing to love deeply without fear of loss. To work hard without obsession with outcome. To give your best and release the rest. Because true power isn't in holding, it's in letting go. Think about how often your mood changes because of things beyond your control. Someone ignores you, and you feel hurt. A plan fails, and you feel defeated. Money leaves your account, and you panic. But when you're detached, those same things happen, and you remain still. You understand that everything external can change, but your response doesn't have to. Epictetus said it perfectly. Don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. That's not submission, that's strength. That's acceptance refined into wisdom. When you detach, you stop begging life to be easier and start training yourself to be stronger. You stop chasing happiness and start creating it within. Detachment frees your energy from what you can't control and redirects it toward what you can, your character, your focus, your actions. Imagine your peace as a lake. The more you grasp at everything around you, success, validation, control, the more waves you create. But the moment you let go, the surface calms. The reflection clears. You begin to see yourself again. Letting go isn't losing. It's releasing your grip on the illusion of control. You can't stop people from leaving. You can't stop life from changing. But you can stop surrendering your peace every time it does. And that's where real control begins, not in dominance, but in detachment. So practice it. Let go of what you can't command. Accept what you can't keep. And remember, you don't own peace. You create it through discipline, wisdom, and release. When you stop holding on to everything, your hands finally open to receive what truly matters. Clarity, freedom, and peace. Let me ask you something. Who's your greatest enemy? It's not the people who doubt you, betray you, or speak against you. It's not the world that throws obstacles in your path. Your greatest enemy has always been the one who lives inside you. The mind that overthinks, the heart that overreacts, the voice that whispers you're not enough. That's the real battlefield. And until you conquer that inner chaos, you'll never find peace, no matter how perfect the outside looks. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't fight to control others. They fought to control themselves. They knew that anger, fear, greed, and pride are not just emotions. They're enemies disguised as instincts. Every time you lose your temper, you hand them your sword. Every time you overthink, you feed their power. Every time you doubt yourself, you kneel before them. But the moment you see them, really see them, something changes. You stop fighting shadows and start understanding their source. Because the inner enemy doesn't live in your failures. It lives in your lack of awareness. When anger rises, most people react. The Stoic observes. When fear whispers, most people run. The Stoic listens, but doesn't obey. When pride tempts, most people indulge. The Stoic pauses and asks, is this helping me grow, or just feeding my ego? You see, conquering the inner enemy doesn't mean erasing your emotions. It means commanding them. You don't silence the voice of fear, you learn to speak louder than it. You don't destroy your anger, you redirect it into purpose. You don't deny your pain, you turn it into discipline. Because the mind can be your greatest ally or your most dangerous prison. If you master it, nothing external can touch you. If you lose to it, nothing external can save you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that's the essence of Stoic warfare. Victory without violence, strength without shouting, power without pride. Every day you wake up to a war inside, between the self that seeks peace and the self that seeks control. Between discipline and indulgence, wisdom and weakness. The battle never ends. But mastery doesn't mean it has to. Because once you know your enemy, once you understand its tactics, it can never surprise you again. Your awareness becomes your armor. Your calm becomes your sword. Your stillness becomes your victory. The world outside can scream, push, and pull. But if you've defeated the world within, nothing can break you. So, the next time chaos stirs in your mind, remember you've fought this enemy before. And every time you've chosen restraint, reflection, or reason, you've already won. The war within doesn't end, it evolves. But so do you. And with each battle, you grow quieter, stronger, freer. Have you ever woken up one morning and asked yourself, why am I doing all this? Why the rush, the grind, the constant chase for something that never seems enough? That question, uncomfortable as it is, marks the beginning of wisdom. Because once you start asking why, you begin to live with intention, and intention is the heartbeat of Stoicism. Asking why, you begin to live with intention, and intention is the heartbeat of Stoicism. The Stoics believed that every action, no matter how small, must serve a purpose. Seneca said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." And that's the tragedy of most lives. People drift, chasing comfort over clarity, movement over meaning. They confuse activity with achievement and call busyness progress. But the truth is, without direction, speed is just a faster path to nowhere. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. You don't need to change the world, you only need to change your relationship with it. Your purpose might be mastering your craft, raising your children with wisdom, serving others quietly, or simply learning to control your mind. What matters is that you live deliberately, that every word, every decision, every moment moves in alignment with who you want to become. The disciplined life isn't about restrictions. It's about freedom through structure. When you live with purpose, distractions lose their power. When your why is clear, your how becomes simple. You stop wasting energy on things that don't align with your mission. You start choosing discomfort that leads to growth over comfort that leads to decay. The Stoics didn't fear hardship, they feared aimlessness. They knew that without direction, pain feels meaningless. But with purpose, even suffering becomes sacred. Every challenge, every delay, every disappointment transforms into fuel for mastery. Because when you live for something greater than yourself, pain becomes a teacher, not a punishment. And that's the paradox of purpose. The more you serve it, the freer you become. Discipline no longer feels like a cage. It feels like clarity. Sacrifice stops feeling like loss. It feels like alignment. You stop being pulled by emotions and start being led by intention. Ask yourself, what am I doing today that serves the person I want to become tomorrow? What choices am I making that move me closer to peace, to wisdom, to control? If your actions don't answer those questions, you're not living, you're drifting. The Stoic life isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about cutting through noise until only truth remains. And when you find that truth, protect it like fire in the wind. Guard it, feed it, and never let it go out. Because a life without purpose is motion without meaning. But a life with purpose, no matter how simple, becomes a masterpiece of discipline and peace. Here's a question worth pausing for. When does mastery truly begin? Is it when you control your thoughts? Or when you realize you were never supposed to control them, only understand them? The final lesson of Stoicism is not dominance over life. It's harmony with it. All along this path, you've learned to command your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. You've learned to stand still in chaos, to detach from what you can't control, and to see peace not as an escape, but as a skill. Now comes the truth that ties it all together. Mastery is not a destination. It's a daily return to awareness. You see, control is not a moment of perfection, it's a practice of presence. Every day, life will test what you've built. Someone will provoke you. Something will fall apart. A thought will try to pull you back into the old version of yourself. And in that moment, your discipline, your peace, your mastery will whisper one simple truth. You are still in control. The Stoics never claimed to be saints. They stumbled, they doubted, they struggled just like you. The difference was how quickly they returned to themselves. That's the art, not to never fall, but to rise without resentment. To meet chaos with calm. To meet loss with gratitude. To meet life exactly as it is, and still choose peace. Becoming your own master means realizing that nothing external can add or remove your worth. It means understanding that silence can be louder than words. That patience is power disguised as stillness. That every emotion, every challenge, every loss is another lesson in the classroom of your own mind. The greatest victory you'll ever win isn't over people, money, or circumstance. It's over the part of yourself that wants to quit, to complain, to control everything. When you master that, when you can breathe through chaos and smile through uncertainty, you've become unstoppable. Because no one can take from you what you no longer depend on. Seneca once wrote, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." That is where this path leads, not to invincibility but to understanding. Not to a perfect life, but to a peaceful one. And that peace, that quiet confidence in the face of everything, that is the mark of mental mastery. It's not something you perform for the world. It's something you carry in silence. A strength too steady to be seen, too real to be broken. So when you finish this journey, don't think of it as an ending. Think of it as a beginning, a return to yourself. A life where words are chosen with wisdom, where emotions are felt but not obeyed, where money serves, not rules, and where the mind becomes your greatest ally, not your prison. That is Stoicism. That is mastery. That is freedom. And if you can carry even one lesson from this, to breathe before you react, to think before you speak, to detach before you despair, then you've already begun walking the path that few ever find.